Pleasant good morning to fellow St. Lucians at home and in the diaspora, viewers online, and to you, members of the media. I take this opportunity to address every St. Lucian with grave concern about the unfolding crisis at our nation's most vital economic gateway, Port Castries. Today, I am deeply troubled that this Labour government has allowed our port operations to slip into chaos, creating a stranglehold on our economy that threatens every household, every business, and every family in St. Lucia. A time when businesses are desperately waiting days and weeks for basic goods clearance. A time when our hard-working truckers are forced to pay unnecessary overtime charges through no fault of their own. A time when empty containers rot at our ports, while merchants and supermarkets face artificial shortages. A time, ladies and gentlemen, when the cost of living spirals out of control because this government refuses to acknowledge the gross mismanagement of SLASPA. As a responsible opposition, we cannot stand by idly while this government's incompetence strangles our economy and burdens every St. Lucian family with the consequences of their failures. Today, we declare our unwavering solidarity with the truckers of St. Lucia, whose courageous protest has finally exposed the gross incompetence and negligence of this Labour administration. It is tragic that our truckers had to resort to strike action to compel this government to confront the crisis they created. However, the protest has achieved what months of warnings could not. It has laid bare the systematic destruction of our port operations under this government's watch. What we are witnessing at SLASPA is nothing short of gross mismanagement. Business people and citizens are waiting days and weeks for goods clearance, not because of global supply chain issues, not because of natural disasters, but because this government has systematically destroyed the operational capacity of our nation's economic lifeline. Our truckers, the backbone of our logistics industry, are being forced to pay overtime charges to customs officers through no fault of their own. Additionally, container space constraints have reached crisis levels, with our port transformed into a dumping ground for empty container shells. They are trapped in a vicious cycle of delays and additional costs, all because this Labour government lacks the competence to manage basic port operations. The truckers' protest has exposed the shocking reality of equipment breakdown and neglect at SLASPA. The former United Workers' Party administration understood the critical importance of port infrastructure. We established a competent board with a deep understanding of port operations. Between 2016 and 2021, we invested in the future, purchasing one new pilot boat, one reach stacker, and 2 forklifts to ensure efficient operations. We maintained our equipment because we understood that a functioning port is the heartbeat of our economy. But what has this Labour Party government done? They have allowed all equipment to deteriorate to the point where SLASPA is now renting a forklift from a private company and outsourcing pilot boat services. The Blue Boy machine, purchased years ago with taxpayer money, now sits resting and idling, a monument to wasted investment and gross negligence. This machine, which should facilitate efficient port operations, has become a symbol of this government's failure to maintain basic infrastructure. Is this the priority of a government that claims to put St. Lucians first? To allow millions of dollars in equipment to rust while forcing businesses to bear the cost of the incompetence. The consequences of this government's port mismanagement are devastating every St. Lucian household. The increased costs are being passed directly to consumers, to the mothers trying to feed their families, to the fathers struggling to make ends meet, to the small business owners watching their profits evaporate. Extra overtime for customs officers caused by the inability of truckers to clear containers efficiently means officers leave after 2 hours and must return the next day. Who pays for this inefficiency? The merchants, the supermarkets, and ultimately St. Lucians. Every St. Lucian family at the checkout counter pays for it. This double charge is passed on to consumers, creating artificial shortages, reducing choices in our supermarkets, and driving up the cost of basic necessities. When families cannot find the products they need or are forced to pay inflated prices for basic goods, that is not a consequence of market forces or supply chain issues. That is a failure of government. The shortage of trained stevedores has compounded the crisis. How can a government claim to prioritize employment while allowing critical positions to remain unfilled, causing further delays and inefficiencies? While St. Lucian truckers struggle and families pay higher prices, what is SLASPA's priority? Facilitating Global Ports Holding, GPH. They have blocked valuable space to accommodate GPH operations, and soon berths 2, 3, and 4 will undergo construction to further prioritize this foreign entity over St. Lucian interest. Empty containers are not being removed, taking up precious space while they rot in our tropical climate. Yet, space is being carved out for GPH operations. Is this the priority of a government that claims to represent St. Lucian interest? The Minister of Infrastructure and Ports oversees the operations of SLASPA, while the Minister of Finance manages financial matters. Yet, in the face of this ongoing fiasco that impacts every St. Lucian, neither minister has uttered a word. Are these ministers concerned about the crisis choking our economy? Are they even aware of the hardship the negligence is inflicting on St. Lucian families? The Deputy Prime Minister has indicated that the government will not get involved, preferring to leave it to SLASPA's management to deal with the crisis. Yet, this is the same Deputy Prime Minister who entangled the government and SLASPA against their better judgment in giving away Port Castries and Port Soufriere to GPH for 40 years. When it comes to handing over our ports to foreign entities, this government moves with lightning speed. But when it comes to addressing the crisis affecting every St. Lucian business and family, they claim it's not their responsibility. This selective involvement exposes the true priorities: foreign interest over St. Lucian welfare. The United Workers' Party has always maintained a clear vision for ports in St. Lucia. We understand that efficient port operations are not luxury items, they are economic necessities. We had comprehensive plans for the development of Port Castries, Port View Fort, and exploring the possibility of a deep water port at Cul-de-sac, long identified solutions that would serve St. Lucian interest first. A United Workers' Party government would never allow our nation's economic gateway to deteriorate into the chaos we see today. We would prioritize equipment maintenance, ensure adequate staffing, and manage port operations with the efficiency and competence that St. Lucian businesses and families deserve. We would never force truckers to subsidize government incompetence through unnecessary overtime charges. We would never allow empty containers to rot while creating artificial shortages for St. Lucian consumers. We would never prioritize foreign port operators over the basic needs of our own people. This port crisis is not an act of nature. It is a direct result of this government's gross mismanagement, misplaced priorities, and fundamental incompetence. While they focus on accommodating foreign port operators and implementing unnecessary and burdensome taxes, St. Lucian families suffer the consequences of higher prices, reduced choices, and economic uncertainty. The truckers' protest has done more than expose port inefficiencies. It has revealed a government that has lost touch with the struggles of ordinary St. Lucians. A government that claims to put people first, yet allows basic infrastructure to crumble. A government that moves swiftly to accommodate foreign interest, whilst remaining silent when St. Lucian businesses and families cry out for relief. We call on this government to stop the excuses, end the ministerial silence, and take immediate action to restore competent management to SLASPA. St. Lucian families cannot afford to subsidize this government's incompetence any longer. The people of St. Lucia deserve better. This Labour government needs to take responsibility for the economic hardship the failures have created. We stand with the truckers. We stand with the businesses struggling to serve their customers. We stand with every St. Lucian family paying higher prices because of this government's failures. It is time for this government to act with the urgency this crisis demands, or step aside for leaders who will put the interest of all St. Lucians first. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.